There are some noises you expect to hear in a new house. Pipes settling, floorboards shifting, the heating system clicking somewhere behind a wall. What you don't expect is to look into a vent in the middle of the night and see a pair of human eyes staring back at you. I was 24 years old at the time, still living with my mom and dad along with my 2 younger siblings. In March, my parents bought a new house, right around the time coronavirus was beginning to be taken seriously and quarantine was starting. So while the rest of the world was shutting down, we were busy unpacking boxes, moving furniture, and trying to make the unfamiliar place feel like home. My bedroom was in the basement. Honestly, I didn't mind. The basement was huge, and because my room was separated from the rest of the house, it almost felt like I had my own private space down there. Technically, the room wasn't really intended to be a bedroom. It was more like an extra room that my parents had decided to turn into one. They figured I'd probably move out eventually, so there wasn't much reason to give me one of the better bedrooms upstairs. The basement itself was actually pretty cool. My dad had set up a 50-inch television down there, and I put my Xbox beside it. Most nights, instead of staying inside my bedroom, I'd sit downstairs playing games and enjoying the extra space. But almost immediately after moving in, something about my bedroom bothered me. It started with sounds. At night, I'd hear strange noises coming from inside the walls. Sometimes they were little movements. Other times, they sounded like muffled thumps. I remember knocking against one of the walls and noticing how hollow it sounded. There was also a vent in the room. Naturally, I wondered if some kind of animal had gotten into the ventilation system. I took out my iPhone and shined the flashlight through the vent, trying to see as far inside as I could. Nothing, just darkness. I told myself it was probably normal house noise. We just moved in. There were dozens of possible explanations. I decided that if the sounds continued, I'd tell my dad and let him investigate. At that point, I had no idea that the vent wasn't simply connected to the house. It was connected to something else entirely. During the first week, I tried not to think much about the noises. One night, I was downstairs playing Warzone on my Xbox. The basement was quiet except for the game sounds coming from the television and the occasional clicking of the controller beneath my fingers. Then I heard it. The sound came from the side of the basement where my bedroom was located. A wall separated me from that part of the basement, so the noise was muffled. Still, it was distinct enough to make me stop playing. It sounded like something heavy made of glass being placed carefully onto a table. I stared toward the wall for a few seconds. Then I got up and quickly walked into my bedroom. Nothing. The room was completely empty. I looked around anyway, checking the corners and the doorway before eventually convincing myself that the sound must have come from upstairs. I hurried back to my Xbox because I didn't want my character to get killed while I was standing around investigating a noise. The next night, it happened again. This time, I woke up to muffled thumps. I couldn't tell whether they were coming from directly above my bedroom or from somewhere beside it. Half asleep, I lay there listening, trying to figure out the direction. Then another dull sound came through the wall. I grabbed my phone. The room was dark, and the only light came from the screen as I walked toward the vent. I shined the flashlight through it again, moving the beam around as much as I could. Still nothing. No animal. No movement. No explanation. By then, I was starting to worry that something small might actually be living inside the walls or ventilation system. I brought it up to my dad. He listened, but he wasn't particularly alarmed. He told me that if the sounds kept happening, I should let him know. He also suggested that I try recording them if I managed to hear them again. So I started paying closer attention. A few nights later, at around 4 in the morning, I woke up extremely thirsty. I reached for the water bottle beside my bed. Empty. With a tired sigh, I got up and walked upstairs to the kitchen, filled the bottle, and started making my way back down. Halfway down the staircase, I stopped. The house was completely dark. I thought I heard something coming from the basement. For a moment, I just stood there. Then I whispered, almost under my breath, wondering if maybe my younger brother was hiding downstairs. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. Step by step, I finished descending the stairs. The basement looked empty, but I still felt like something had changed. I didn't know what, and I was about to find out. I slowly looked around the basement, letting the flashlight sweep across the furniture, the television, the floor, and the dark spaces beyond them. Nothing moved. No brother. No animal. No person. Eventually, I convinced myself that whatever I'd heard was harmless. I went back into my bedroom and prepared to sleep. I placed my water bottle on the ledge above my bed. Then I stopped. Something in my gut told me to look at the vent one more time. I don't know why. There was nothing logical about it. I'd already checked it several times. I'd already looked inside with my phone. My dad knew about the sounds. There was no reason to expect anything different. But I turned anyway. I raised my phone and switched on the flashlight. The beam crossed the wall, then the vent, and for perhaps half a second, I saw someone looking through the holes. Human eyes, clear as day. They were right there, staring through the vent at me. For that tiny fraction of a second, neither of us moved. Then the person pulled away. The light caught them, and they disappeared. My body reacted before my brain could process what I'd seen. I screamed. I didn't investigate. I didn't go closer to the vent. I didn't try to find out who was on the other side. I ran. I sprinted up the basement stairs yelling for my dad, completely abandoning any attempt to act like a 24-year-old who had just seen something impossible. My whole family came downstairs with me. I led them straight to the vent. My hands were shaking as I pointed my phone toward it and turned the flashlight on again. Nothing. The space behind the vent was empty. My dad looked inside himself. Still nothing. There was no person staring back at us. My parents tried to explain it away. They told me I probably hadn't gotten enough sleep. I was tired. I'd just woken up in the middle of the night. Maybe my eyes had played a trick on me. But I knew what I'd seen. Those weren't shadows. They weren't reflections. They were someone's eyes. I refused to sleep in the basement that night. Instead, I slept in the living room. The basement door had a lock, but that wasn't because my family expected someone to be hiding down there. The basement also had an outdoor entrance, so the lock was basically an extra layer of security against someone breaking into the house. At the time, that detail didn't seem important. The next day, it became terrifying, because when I went back downstairs, I found something that changed the entire situation. There was a door in the wall, and it was open. At first, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. The door had been hidden inside the basement wall, and somehow I'd never noticed it before. It wasn't a normal room entrance. It looked like the kind of thing you could easily overlook if you weren't specifically searching for it. But now it was open. I immediately called my dad downstairs. He came over, and together we looked inside. What we found made my stomach drop. Behind the hidden door was a small room. There was a blanket lying on the floor. There was also a small wooden stool or something similar. And beyond that was a tiny corridor. It was narrow enough to feel less like part of a normal house and more like a concealed passage that wasn't supposed to be there. My dad went farther inside. I followed. The farther we went, the more uncomfortable I became. Then we reached the end. The corridor led directly to the vent in my bedroom. The same vent I'd been hearing noises around. The same vent I'd repeatedly shined my phone flashlight into. The same vent where I'd seen those eyes. Suddenly, every strange sound from the previous nights seemed different. The heavy glass-like noise, the muffled thumps, the sounds I couldn't locate, the feeling that something was moving somewhere inside the walls. All of it now had a possible explanation. Someone could have been inside that hidden room. Someone could have been using the blanket. Someone could have been sitting on that little stool. And someone could have been watching directly into my bedroom. The thought was almost impossible to process. I had spent nights sleeping in that room without realizing that there was a concealed space on the other side of the wall. A person could have been there while I was asleep. They could have been watching me through the vent. They could have been listening to everything happening inside the house. And then another possibility entered my mind. What if they hadn't just been watching? What if they had been taking things? The hidden room was connected to the basement, and the person would have had access to the house. They could potentially have been sneaking upstairs while we were asleep, raiding the kitchen, and returning to the hidden room before anyone noticed. Suddenly, the house didn't feel new anymore. It felt occupied, not by my family alone. I kept thinking about the night I'd seen those eyes. The person had moved away the instant my flashlight exposed them. And now there was only one explanation that made sense. They knew I'd seen them, which meant they also knew they had been discovered. The more my dad and I examined the hidden space, the harder it became to dismiss what had happened as imagination. The blanket wasn't something you'd expect to find randomly inside an unused wall. Neither was the little wooden stool. And the narrow corridor leading directly to the vent in my bedroom made the situation even worse. Someone had access to that space. Someone could reach the vent. Someone could look through it. And sometime during that first week in the house, I had seen a person doing exactly that. I kept replaying the moment in my head. I had been standing beside my bed. I'd placed my water bottle on the ledge. Something inside me had told me to check the vent one more time. I turned. I raised the flashlight, and there they were, eyes staring directly at me. Then the light hit them, and they disappeared. At the time, my parents had believed I was simply exhausted. Now, standing inside that hidden room, I knew there had been another possibility all along. I hadn't imagined the eyes. I discovered where they had come from. The most disturbing part was what might have happened before that night. If someone had been living in that hidden space, how long had they been there? Had they entered before my parents bought the house? Had they discovered the hidden room after we moved in? Had they been quietly moving through the house while we were asleep? Had they taken food from our kitchen? And perhaps the question that bothered me most of all, how often had they watched me? I don't know the answers. What I do know is that after I screamed and brought my family downstairs, whoever had been behind that vent had heard the commotion. They knew something was wrong. They knew I had seen them. And I believe that may have been the moment they decided it was time to leave. The hidden room was there. The blanket was there. The stool was there. The corridor was there. And the vent looked directly into my bedroom. Everything I'd thought was strange house noise suddenly had a much more disturbing explanation. I never felt comfortable sleeping in that basement again. Even now, the thought stays with me, because discovering the hidden room answered one question, but created several more. Who had been living there? How long had they been watching us? And most importantly, had they really left? I still fear that the person could come back, because the scariest thing about the entire experience wasn't seeing a face in the dark. It was realizing that, for some unknown amount of time, someone may have been there with us, and we had no idea.